Welcome, glad to have you here tonight. Board, would you all please join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Nancy, roll call, please.
Ackerman. Here. Dye. Here. Genema. Here. LaPointe.
Here.
Paul Scott is excused. He's working. White.
Here.
Solinger.
Here. Thank you. Again, welcome everybody. I think we've got enough seats. If we've got 2 or 3 we can fill in. If we need to, that's fine. We're glad you're here tonight. We're going to be talking about Acme Creek and events that have happened in the last few weeks. And I thought it would be good. We're going to open for limited public comment. But I also would like to go through some action items that have already been done. So many questions have come up, what's been fixed, has something been fixed, was something needed to be fixed, whatever it is. So I thought I'd go through some of those first. That might assist then as people have comments if you've already heard something that's happened or not, whichever that may be. So if you don't mind, I will do that. When we do go into actual comments, I will ask to see, kind of show of hands how many so we can judge our time and make sure people get a reasonable time to make their comments. Acme Township officials are all very concerned about what's happened on 9/21 especially. And any major rainstorm dropped, and when this major rainstorm dropped about 3 inches of rain or more, we experienced runoff in Acme Creek, no doubt about it. Many of you saw it. I saw it early Sunday morning, so I was aware of it. Yesterday, we did have a review of the status of many of the things that are going on and repairs and things that needed to go on to this site, caused by 2 100-year storm events, both 9/7/14 and 9/21/14. We held that meeting yesterday. We had the DEQ there. We had Gordy Frazier, BDT representatives, Elmer's, Global Environmental, Soil Erosion Office from the county, Goslin Schubeck, ourselves, and some representatives from Myers and Rockford Construction. So that was this was really an engineering review of what's going on, what's been fixed, what needs to be looked at. The primary objective of that meeting was to ensure that the necessary actions were identified and implemented to ensure that further soil erosions into Acme Creek won't happen again. That's our goal. Will not happen again. We reviewed what's happened during the last 2 storm events and what actions have been taken to date based on Dr. Grobel's July 4th site visit and letter of July 14th, along with the most recent visit after this rain Monday. So this last Monday when we had our rain event, Dr. Grobel, who is with us here tonight, actually visited the site during the rain to make sure things were okay. We're in good shape. There were some erosion compliance notices put out by the county soil erosion. Some of you have heard about that. All of those, by Pete Brewski addressed and said, all of those have been repaired. Many of them were repaired way before that meeting yesterday, but all of them have been repaired. Many of them were not just repaired, but additions felt that was needed to appropriately stop runoff in various areas. And to that point, I'd like to point out, we did check the creek today. That creek looked pretty good today. If anybody else did, then that's fine. It is the creek of the township. There was a lot of extra work done, and I got a report given to me at 6 tonight, so I want to make sure that you're with. Additional berms and things were done on some of the roads area. Silt fence again today, additional was put in during the rain. So they were watching the rain, anything that was happening to make sure it needed to be done. Working on the basins. Additional silt fence installed at the end of basin number 1. There was 10 to 15 people on site today working on that site in the rain. So if any of you were out in the rain today, that's a pretty tough thing to do in a rainy day to work on a site like that, but we have 15 people out there working to do things that will help to prevent any problems on this. All silt fences have been constructed and maintained. There was a question earlier about in accordance with the Grand Traverse County and DEQ permitting process. And we do have 3 representatives of DEQ with us tonight, so if we have questions, we'll have them either say a word or at least try to help us answer some of those. And I hope they don't mind that. Brian? Nope. I think that's, he offered to come, and I think it's important that we all want to understand where we're at and what we're doing there. We do have NPDS reports. These are reports from the stormwater operator requirement by the DEQ. I have them available from the site. They're usually always kept on the site when you have a construction. These are the reports of any rain events, and they're kept by that site coordinator. So we have those. We have discussed many issues about the stormwater basins. Both Basin 1, which is south of Myers Store on the main road, and Basin 2 by the internal roundabout. It is west of the internal roundabout. There is some questions about the designs being inconsistent with the best practices that we approved. We are looking with Gordy Frazier, our team, King and McGregor, the original environmental team, Dr. Grobel, and others, to make sure that they meet the design criteria or will meet the design criteria as required by our site. That's very important. Will be stepping up regular site visits by Dr. Grobel. I don't know if you're out there today, Chris, at all, but you were out there Monday, I know. And so some of that will be done so that we make sure that, spot visits are good, but we see things going on. I or any of the board members went out there, we could see something, but we're not sure if it's right or wrong. We're not the experts. We need people that know those things to do that. The developer has agreed to additional stormwater sampling. We have to set up what that will be. So I just wanted to give you some flavor of a lot of things that have been done since this event. We, again, as the township officials, all take this very seriously. We want to make sure we understand it, what it takes to fix anything. If there is anything more to be fixed, make sure that we can protect the creek in the best manner. So with that, I will open the public comments at this time. Is there anybody, can I see a show of hands of people that want to make public comments? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anybody else? Okay. Who's in the front row? We'll start the front row. Jim, we'll let you first. We'll try to keep this to about 3 to 4 minutes. But really, we really want to. We want to get through everything tonight. We do want to hear comments. The board needs to talk about them once you've heard the comments. So, thank you.
Jim Hefner, 4050 Bayberry Lane in Williamsburg. I would really like to know where the failure was in this process, because I sat through a lot of the planning commission meetings, and Chris talked about how he had designed a retention system that the DEQ didn't need to permit because there was going to be no runoff into Acme Creek. I realize that this is a construction process, and I have a lot of faith in the developer, but was it a matter that we aren't updating our regulations because of global warming or these frequencies of high volume rains? Or was it a matter of the developer not doing the correct engineering, or implementing the engineering, or was the engineering? Where is the failure at? One of the things that makes Acme stand out is the bay. I mean, the old thing, a view of the bay is half your pay. Well, a view of chocolate milk is not half your pay, okay? Felt like I got robbed, though. One time, okay, hey, and then we hear from our county officials that it's a natural occurrence, sediment coming out of the creek. We know that's not the case. You saw it up above the development where all the creeks were running clear, and below the development was chocolate milk. And the county soil and erosion people came out and looked at it and said, well, everything was in compliance. That wasn't what we were seeing as residents. I'd just like to know where the blame lies and what the correction is in the future for other developments here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else in the front row? We'll take it by row. Next. Good. Please state your name and where you live.
Sure. My name is Terry Hansen. I live at 6142 Gilbert Avenue, about a quarter mile from here. I have 240 feet of Acme Creek. I'm not a fisherman, but I enjoy my little piece of heaven. I watch my creek, I watch the animals, I watch the minks, the geese, whatever's passing through. The king salmon, not too many anymore. But I watch the ebb and flow. I don't think there's any danger my house is going to get flooded, but I watch my creek. And I understand it was a catastrophic, a lot of rain. And I've taken my mountain bike and I go take a look, and I don't see a whole lot of stuff, but I don't know the whole site plan. But what I'm concerned about is future when there's pavement, when everything is done. I don't want to see an oil slick coming by my house. That's what I'm concerned about when it gets all done.
Thank you. Anybody across? Go ahead, we'll just take it line in. John, right? Okay.
John Stevenson, Peace Valley Road. I just thought it was interesting that there was no, that the grass cover was entirely stripped and left the bare sand. Should be an easy thing for, I've got civil engineering technology training. It's an easy thing to figure out, what the water flow is going to be and whether you have sufficient basins and other things to prevent it. But one thing I heard was that they may only develop Myers and leave the rest of it for another year or so. And if it's just going to be sand, it needs grass, it needs something. It needs straw, it needs a bunch of things. And really, I thought as a township, we learned that from Lockenheath because, of course, they had huge problems with runoff there. And one of the things Jim told me is that he's now, quote unquote, a great believer in grass. And his development was really cost a lot of extra money, and there was a lot of runoff because of just bare ground. So I'd like to see make sure that there is coverage over the long run, and not just for the short term here, because it's going to be another big deluge sometime along the way, and whatever they have figured out needs the general area needs protection rather than just runoff base. Thank you.
When I talked earlier, I will answer some of yours just because it's important. There has been a tremendous since the last event of seeding, matting, and putting in. So a lot of work went into it. We appreciate that. Virginia.
Good evening, Mr. Manager, trustees, and staff. Virginia Teagle, 4810 Bartlett. It really took a lot of restraint to not bring my 3-foot pile of documents, and I'm going to ask permission in advance to speak longer to this issue due to the hours that I and the Planning Commission spent over 2.5 years' time. So, like many of you,
Let me ask you before.
I timed myself 7 minutes.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if many others are, is this an error in design or implementation, and what you will do to find out. I want to provide you with some additional incentive to provide our waters of Grand Traverse Bay. We spent $10 million to purchase shoreline, $347,000 of which are Acme Township funds. The master plan survey states that 83% of the residents and businesses that participated placed a high priority on water quality, protecting the streams, watersheds, and the bay, which is also a top priority in the Grand Traverse County Master Plan. And of course, we have shared watersheds. I looked up because I wanted to put a value. I know that the people of this township recognize economics. I know that what drives this board, and that's the position you ran on. So I wanted to put a price on the bay. I did find the Michigan Economic Development Corporation have these statistics. Blue economy assets. Annually, $4 billion from boaters, $2 billion from recreational fishing, $955 million from coastal tourism. You can decide for yourselves what portion of that could be attributed to Grand Traverse Bay. I also noticed that you have an item on your agenda for October 7th, and I'm concerned about any further minor amendments being approved while this is in process. I'm concerned about the percent of impervious surface. I'm a little confused about that amendment and whether or not it overlays the existing design and if the changes have been applied for through the DEQ. Thank you, you've answered a number of my 12 questions. I did expect that this would be included in the public
The
comment.
board
portion.
has it, but
Right.
we got your request for that later today, and the package had already been put out.
Okay.
So we appreciate the
So I referenced, in the time we spent on the planning commission, there was much back and forth about stormwater management. And I'd like to read a few portions. They actually came from the developer. The portions of the system were to be constructed during phase 1 to take advantage of mass earthwork required to construct the corridor road. Calculated based on the actual runoff volumes generated by phase 1. Preliminary sizing of the basins for build-out indicated that little, if any, of phase 1 runoff would ever enter the wetlands. And also the requirement for back-to-back 100-year storm events for the Wetland Protection Act. And I'm not sure how you measure the 200 years. Anyway, if anybody wants to look at that. Also, one of the requirements of the permit was to be provided the as-built plans once the proposed stormwater management system was implemented. And I'm curious as to when those will be provided. I'm glad to hear that you mentioned sampling, additional sampling would be done. I think it's imperative that that be done immediately. And in fact, I would like all of you to invite all of you. Watershed Center will be having a training session this Saturday. I think that there's room for some awareness on the part of members of the board when you're making these decisions. I've extended an invitation over the 15 years that I've participated in the Adopt a Stream program. And I will be doing that sampling on Yuba Creek in the next 2 weeks. And if any of you would like to participate, I will schedule it based on your availability. I would also like to refer to a couple of the sections in the DEQ plan. I knew it was going to come in handy keeping this stuff in my basement for the last couple of years. Oh, I thought these were really interesting. I have the overview that might help some of you that aren't so familiar. I see you don't have the visuals tonight. So here's the overview. And also, I particularly like this one because it shows the topography of the site. And also this one shows the drainage basins. I'll hold it up for the audience. So the basins in question are Basin 1 and 2. And it's my understanding Basin 2 is not fully constructed. Okay, back to the DEQ permit. Number 1, all work shall be completed in accordance with the attached plan. I would very much like to know that. Number 4, has to do with the fabric erosion or straw bales constructed immediately adjacent to the wetland boundary along the entire length of the wetland area. This erosion barrier shall be maintained in good working order throughout the duration of the project. Number 18, another particular interest of mine. If any change or deviation from the permitted activity becomes necessary, the permittee shall request in writing a revision of the permitted activity and/or mitigation plan from the DEQ. Such revision request shall include complete documentation supporting modification of revised plans, detailing the proposed modification. Proposed modifications must be approved in writing by the DEQ prior to being implemented. So, very curious if that's taking place. Appreciate your time. And also those comments about the DEQ permit relate to the minor amendment that you're reviewing. And last, I feel that I've earned the right to get a tour of the property and see for myself how it's been implemented. And I'm very much welcome that with the experts that are here. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. One thing I'd add to Virginia about testing, the township does, there's been a lot of misconceptions. We still do water testing, Tom Hinkle does it, of Acme Creek, Cuba Creek, and other areas. And anybody that wants to see those reports, we'd be glad to share them with you. That's, I told the last couple months of them to look at, so that is still being done by our township. Next, anybody else that wants to speak, put up your hand, we'll, Rochelle.
Rochelle?
And then we'll get Brian, you after Rochelle.
First, I'd like to thank everyone that lives in the area, the residents living near the bay and those living along the Acme Creek where the spill occurred, showing where the piles of mud and piles of clay coming off the village of Grand Traverse Meyer development and into our tributaries, and that it has not gone unnoticed. Our neighbors have shared their letters and their photos, so there can be no whitewashing of facts. This watershed disaster should not be allowed to be swept under a corporate rug. These same residents will now be noticing more of what is going on with the development, I'm sure of that. I have 3 questions to the state, the county, and the township specialist, and I'm positive you're going to answer some of them. Working to rectify this mess that we now have in our waterways. What is the clean up plan, and who is responsible for the costs that it incurs? How much mud and clay was actually washed into the watershed from the village of Grand Traverse Meyer property? And what type of water retention structures for best practice will be implemented for future protection of Acme Creek and our watershed, and who will be responsible for monitoring this area? And then in closing, I just wanted to make those of us who are Acme residents aware that the village of Grand Traverse is also looking at possibly changing their development, and will need some major zoning changes so that they can meet their marketing demands. And so you should all be aware that that's going to be going on here in Acme Township sometime this year, I'm sure. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. Brian.
Brian Kelly. Good evening. I've been an Acme Creek user for 30 years. I rode the school bus each day along M72 and Louter Road, passing by the VGT site. This developer, the state, the county, and this township have failed to protect our creek and bay. Why must I read news about this from the newspaper and not get it directly from my township? We have a website. There should be daily status updates on that website. Why must community members file Freedom of Information Act requests to get documents and status updates? The developer has been sending daily status updates on this situation, but they are not being shared with the public. In July, township residents paid for a consultant to inspect the VGT site. He found numerous deficiencies. That report was kept quiet. I have attached it to my comments, which I have submitted via email. It was not shared with the board, and it was not shared with the community that paid for it. Even after the September 5th Creek fiasco, that report was still withheld. That is unacceptable. This board must take action so that future reports are proactively shared with the community via the township website. That should be mandatory. Had that report been shared, we very well might have averted these multiple fiascos. Dr. Grobel said in the Record Eagle that the needed changes that he had recommended had not been made, and that there, quote, would have been far less or no impact if they had taken those recommendations seriously, unquote. Why did the township not follow up on this? They did nothing. No one from the township bothered to verify that the changes had been made. Dr. Grobel was ignored. I am a man of action. I walked that site on Sunday, and I have photographs of countless silt fence deficiencies. On Wednesday, I again checked the site, and the deficiencies in the part of the site I walked remained. Those look like the same deficiencies that were identified in Dr. Grobel's report from July. I looked at the photos there. I visited the site this morning. I saw workers there. When I approached them, I was told by Steve Folksmara that the owners of the site did not want anyone on the property due to bad press and that I had to leave. I wish I could have seen the site improvements and the stormwater controls working properly, because I would like to report that to you today, but I did not get to see those. One thing I did see there that was kind of curious was a sewer, and on top of the sewer was a generator. Generator was connected to a pump in the bottom of the sewer, and it was pumping fluid out of the sewer towards the silt fence and towards Acme Creek. I took photos of this. It seemed to be an unusual thing. The workers told me they were pumping water out of a piece of equipment. There's been a failure at all levels to protect our most important resource in this community. We have been unable to rely upon those we pay to inspect this site and protect our creeks and beaches. On September 24th, the County Director of Soil Erosion said in a letter, "It is apparent that the project manager was not properly monitoring the actual site conditions and ensuring the contractor had installed the erosion control measures in the proper sequence. The contractor did not have basin number 2 completed, and runoff had been diverted from entering the basin, thus causing the silt fences to become overloaded during the last storm." This letter is included in my comment. So we can point to Mother Nature all we want, but if the critical aspects of the stormwater control system were not completed, we can't expect that system to work. That was not Mother Nature. It was a developer who assured this community that the trout creek and bay would be protected, but then did not complete essential elements of the plan. Time and again, they asked for changes to the plan to accelerate construction of the Myers store while they ignored the threat to the creek. This topic should be a standing agenda item at the start of our future board meetings. The public should be able to ask questions at that time. I noticed that this is not on our agenda for our Tuesday board meeting. Thank you.
One comment, Brian, I'd like to make. I believe there's a misquote. I think the public needs to know that. Dr. Grobel's request back in July was answered and was in the documents available, and the board has seen those. That everything at that site was fixed other than seeding, I believe. Is that a fair statement, Chris? We have pictures from them that was fixed.
It's a fair statement, but seating was the issue.
A
not
critical
side
issue. Yeah, we agree with that.
Everything else
was
was an
fixed,
issue.
documented, and we have that. So
Right.
thank you.
I have a couple hundred photos I'll be submitting to the township to show the fence deficiencies.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else? Back behind you. Charlie's.
Don't worry, it's very short. I'm Charlene Abernethy, 4312 Westridge. Thought a lot about what to say tonight, and I decided to say that I'm disgusted. Like others, I sat through many meetings about stormwater concerning this development. We were told, oh no, we're protecting the creek, nothing's going to get in the creek. Obviously, that nothing has happened. And I don't believe that storm even got close to being what the creek was supposed to be protected from. My questions are, was this incompetence? Was it corner cutting or blatant disregard for the permits and law?
Anybody else? I'm sure I've seen all hands. Anybody? Okay. Hearing none, I'll close the comments at this time. Let's go on with our approval of agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Inquiry into conflicts of interest of anybody tonight. Seeing none. Correspondence. Attached to our package is correspondence from Bob Garvey. It's regarding testing of the creek. And another letter we had was concerning citizens of Acme Township. With a lot of questions and questioning some of the consultants we have used. So those are attached to our correspondence. It was not asked by either one to be read in the meeting, so we will not read those, but they are available and they will be on our website. Not on the, yes, there's the minutes and stuff on the website.
They're right now.
Yes, they are there now with the agenda, that's right. Thank you, Nancy. New business. We're here tonight to discuss communications to the public and status, sort of. I'd like to start that discussion. Brian, if you don't mind, from DEQ's perspective, is there anything you'd like to say tonight while you're here?
Absolutely.
Good, we'd like
Excuse
to
me,
do
Mr.
that.
Salinger, can we have first and last names of all individuals that are speaking on behalf of this project and the agencies they represent? I don't know this Brian, I'd like to know his last name for my record.